Julie, what are you doing? You do not try to kill Veronica. Not Queen V, not my absolute favorite, not on my watch. You don't. Preferably, we don't try to kill any cast members. Maybe that's the route we go. Maybe that's what we try. Plus, what do you know? Mike is here and boom, relationship drama ensues. CT makes his debut along with half of the Real World Paris cast. Dave Mira is here hosting now, and he has with him maybe the weirdest set of elimination rounds we've ever seen. All of the romance and fights a Challenge House could ever hope for are coming into this house, and maybe best of all, Coral is back, and you better not ask her to wrestle you on the lawn. We're headed to Acapulco, baby. It's the full season recap of Season 8, The Inferno, coming up right now. What up, my fellow Challenge lovers? Welcome to The Challenge Historian, where we dive deep into all things MTV's The Challenge, past, present, or future. If it's happening in the Challenge universe, then we are here to document it. I am your host, dedicated Challenge Historian, Jacob Hollaball. Thank you so very, very much for being here with us today. On today's show, we continue the 2022 Challenge Series Rewatch by diving into Season 8, The Inferno.
Sunny Acapulco, a $12 million house, all quiet and serene until the Inferno comes to town.
Acapulco!
Bringing a heap of trouble with him.
Yeah! We're supposed to be a team.
That wasn't sure, and you know it.
This game is so nasty.
I can only talk for so long. The next thing I know, I'm swinging.
I'm done.
This is when we all still get along.
The weird part is, like, every time we go to these challenges, I look around and I'm like, I don't see anyone fighting here. I don't see anyone getting a relationship here. I don't see anything happening. I see this is going to be a boring show. Then about a week or two into it, I'm like, oh, my bad. I almost forgot. This is the real world and road rules.
So you did lie to me.
When I hear her voice, it makes me want to go home.
She cannot be talking to me like that.
What a memorable season. Truly. I mean, we are talking about 2, 3, 4, maybe more iconic moments from this show that are top of mind. I'll always remember when type of moments in Challenge history. Pretty incredible stuff from a season that certainly has its shares of hits and misses as far as decisions made from cast and production alike. We will get into all of that over the next hour or two here, and we will do so using the similar format to what we've been doing for these season rewatch recaps. Some minor tweaks here or there, possibly, as we continue along, which reminds me of two things to say to you, my fellow Challenge historian listening right now. First and foremost, thank you so much for being here and for all the feedback I've been getting on these rewatch podcasts and all the episode recaps and clips posted to the Challenge Historian Instagram page. It is so appreciated to hear from folks who are enjoying the show. It means the world. It makes it so much more fun more fun than even than it already is. It's already fun on its own part, but being able to share it and share this rewatch journey makes it even more enjoyable and rewarding, which leads me to my second thing for you, which is that I'd love to learn more about why you are either liking or disliking or would love to see discussed as I continue on more and more season recaps, because I do plan. We'll see if it happens in this calendar year or not. That's still the goal. But one way or the other, I plan on knocking out every single season of the show. And I'd love to get some feedback from y'all listening for ways to make them better and better as we go along. So hit me up on Instagram at Challenge Historian. Slide in those DMs. That's the easiest way to contact me for the time being. I may be a little slow on my DMs, but I do typically respond to every single one of them, and I would love to hear some feedback, be it positive, negative, or indifferent. Just keep it constructive, if you will, and let me know what you think. If there's something, a topic, an idea about that you'd love to see added into, always discussed about each one of these seasons, something you love, something you hate, something you think we could do without, something we could add in, a twist on something, whatever it may be, let me know your thoughts there. And that's it. Thanks again for being here. But with that, we'll keep all programming notes to the very end. You know them all by now. All Stars 3 recap coming as those episodes come out. Try to do one of these season recaps once, every week, every other week, as often as we can. There we did. We just nailed out the production notes all just like that. So with that, we're off. Let's head down to Mexico. Let's pull up to that $18 million mansion, head down the steps into the fiery pit of hell that is the Inferno. Let's kick things off with our state of the challenge, talk some basics, some evolutions, get our mind wrapped around this season 8, the Inferno, where we're at, what's going on, and very, the highest level of high level stuff about this season as we start to dive on in and peel back the layers and talk about it all. We will be talking about it all. There's a lot to get through. So let's start with just kind of where the challenge is at. This is season 8. And this is around the time where the challenge is very much hitting its stride, hitting its, I don't know if I want to say its high point, depending how you look at it. I feel like there's kind of some peaks and valleys over the history of the challenge. It didn't get to a high peak and then plateau there for a very, very long time. It hit some peaks, it dipped a little, it hit some peaks, it dipped a little. It's hard to say which peak maybe was the highest, but this is definitely its first peak. Its initial, it's ramped all the way up, and now it's a real thing. It's a big franchise. It is a staple on MTV, and really, you can tell that by the way that they did this season, as they went Gauntlet, Inferno, back to back. Those two were launching a new era of the show. Adding in the eliminations kind of was the final big change. We'll talk about evolutions here in a moment, but that was the final really big that we're going to do this different. And now we've got the formula for this show. We got people from Road Rules. We got people from Real World. We take the stars. We put them back in another house. We let them come back season after season so they can have big, long storylines. They can have different feuds, different rivalries, different best friends, different romances. They can compete each other repeatedly. We put them all in a house. We make them do silly but athletic competitions. We hope drama ensues, and we give the ones that make it to the end a whole bunch of money for their time. And they added in the elimination element that you don't get to stay the whole time, and now you don't just get voted out, you fight for your way out. So the Gauntlet and Inferno really was kind of era number 2 of the show. Everything before that, the first 6 seasons, they're kind of figuring it out. That's the figuring it out era of the challenge. What do we have here? What could this be era of the challenge? And Gauntlet and Inferno were literally, they're not only just filmed damn near back to back, it's kind of crazy. I would love to talk to one of the 7 cast members that was on both seasons, how fast they just went from one to filming the other. But they were filmed very close together, very, very close together, and they were released literally back to back. The Gauntlet went and ran their 17 episodes long, 17 episodes, whatever it was. There was then, instead of a reunion for the Gauntlet, there was an episode called Battle Scars from the Gauntlet to the Inferno, which literally aired the week after the Gauntlet finale, and then 1 week later was premiere episode of the Inferno. So these were back to back. They were squished together. They were kind of billed as, the Inferno was more or less a sequel in a way to the Gauntlet, and it's a new era of the show, and it's the show hitting its first peak of relevancy, of importance in the MTV world, and really of all of these folks that are on it are now bona fide reality television stars. And we're still back in 2004, so you don't even really have to delineate from reality television star to just these are celebrities. I mean, they're not the biggest movie stars in the world, not that level of celebrity, but these people are celebrities in their own right. They're big stars, and the franchise is full steam ahead. This is a no signs of ever stopping this until we're forced to stop this. Vibes with it, they're running back-to-back seasons, the whole thing. Real World at the time is, adding to the confidence of the challenge is the fact that Real World is hitting an absolute all-time high that they might be able to sustain then for a little while, but we're coming right off Real World Paris, one of the iconic seasons of the Real World. We got Chicago around this time. We're about to introduce a bunch of, we've had a few of them before. We're about to bring a bunch of them back again, but Paris just aired, Real World, all-time high. And now we're pumping in 4 cast members from the Real World Paris into one season, which was the first time I think really that they went that heavy on, because they were airing this back-to-back. Normally the last few seasons there had been 2 seasons of the Real World to a season of the Challenge. There was 14 Real World cast members to pick from as new rookies. This one, there was 1. They wanted to get them in there and back on the screens as fast as possible. They do. Road Rules, on the other hand, they're the end of this season. They have a promo for Road Rules Extreme, which was filming around the same time. That season, while great and would bring the likes of a Derek and a Jody into our lives, was kind of the last flame of Road Rules. There would be Viewers Revenge after that, and then it's it. So it's kind of at the end of that show, and very much, we've talked about with the last few seasons of the challenge, during the State of the Challenge portion, talking about how Road Rules was not only dying out, but it was because the resources were being moved from that competition show to this competition show. And this is right about where they're like, all right, Road Rules, we're letting you do Road Rules Extreme. We're putting as much money and travel and crazy shit into it as we ever have. But it's kind of it. Then we've got enough folks, and we've got this challenge thing going and running so strong. We're sticking with it. And the final part of kind of where the challenge was at is also just where the reality world was at and where the reality competition show was at. The reality television show was just in a complete boom. There was so much going on. MTV was pumping a lot of it out. ABC was pumping theirs out. There was, the beginnings of what would be VH1, Bravo, E, those types of, whether they're on those networks or not, that type of reality blossoming out there. And niche down within that in the competition space, Survivor, Big Brother, Amazing Race, they're all 3 years in or so at this point, 2, 4, 3, 4, 5 seasons in. And they are big deals in their own right. And reality competition shows are really kind of having a moment. The Challenge is big. Survivor is massive. Big Brother is big. Amazing Race is big. All of them have a cultural footprint. All of them at the same time. Challenge obviously came first. We'll always say that. It's also the best one. We'll always say that too. But that's kind of where the Challenge is at. It's really hitting its first peak. It's in its stride. No signs of turning back, and it's really become, it's an official franchise. It was a franchise, the moment they did a second one and a third one, but now it is viewed as, oh, I'm popping into the Challenge. I've watched a bunch of those. I know I'm going to watch a bunch more, and this is a comfortable space. This is a franchise that I know and love and know will be around for the long haul. So that's where we're at coming into the season. Now let's talk a couple basics of the season here. First off, aired, as we just said, immediately after the Gauntlet. So this aired from February 2nd, 2004 to May 31st, 2004. With 0 break between episodes of the Gauntlet and episodes of the Inferno. Cast, 20 people deep. Let me pull up that cast list to read all of them for you. They're almost all, only 20, which was a drop down from where we had been for a few seasons in a row, where we had been in the high 20s, low 30s range, but 20 people. We've got Team Real World, which is Coral from Back to New York, CT from Paris, Miz from Back to New York, Cyrus from Boston, David from Seattle, Leah from Paris, Julie from New Orleans, Mallory from Paris, Trishelle from Las Vegas, and Ace from Paris as well. 4 Real World Paris rookies coming in, as we said before. Then on on Road Rules, we've got Abram from South Pacific, Christina from South Pacific, Darrell from Campus Crawl, Holly from Latin America, Katie from The Quest, Kendall from Campus Crawl, Timmy from Road Rules 2, Veronica Semester at Sea, Shane Campus Crawl, and Jeremy from South Pacific. Those are your 10 Road Rules, 10 Real World, 20 people total. New host for this season, Dave Mira, BMX legend. May he rest in peace. Dave Mira is here, taking over after a couple seasons of Johnny Mosley. We do know, as we're looking back at these, in retrospect, Dave would host the 2 seasons of the Inferno. He and Johnny would go alternate, Gauntlet, Inferno, Battle of the Sexes, Inferno, Gauntlet. TJ shows up. TJ's there for the rest of history. Location, Acapulco, Mexico. Our 2nd season ever in Mexico. One of the all-time best locations. Should just do all of them there, arguably. They almost always work out for absolutely great, amazing seasons. The prize money, $300,000, plus those Saturn ions at the end, because Saturn is still here. One thing that doesn't change in the early days of this show is Saturn is sponsoring it. Saturn is giving away some cars. And Veronica now has a lot of Saturn cars in her garage. I'm sure she probably doesn't have all of them now, 18 years later, but she's got a lot of Saturns in her garage in the mid-2000s there. Episodes, 17 full-length episodes of the season, plus 3 different specials. We said before, the Battle Scars from the Gauntlet to the Inferno was a pseudo recap of the Gauntlet and preview of the Inferno that aired the 1 week between those two shows airing their finale and premiere. Then we had a final burn special, which was right before the finale of this season. So mixed in, it's actually hard to tell. Different places you look have the episodes listed slightly differently, but if you go by 20-minute episodes, then there was 17 full ones, and before the final episode, or really the final 2, the finale episode, which is kind of 2 episodes if you count it as a full 17, but there was a final burn one where they did like a full season recap, a 40-minute long, hey, here's the 15 episodes you've watched before, everything that's happened, setting you up for the final Inferno in the final challenge. Very cool, very interesting. Liked that they do it, and they did it. It did not take up a week of the schedule. It was just a bonus. It was added in. It was 2-hour long finale extravaganza on this day 18 years ago. And then a third special, they did do a full reunion. So 17 episodes, 3 different special reunion preview type episodes. That is the basics of the season. And somehow, in all of that, I just referenced it, but I didn't say it earlier. This is the 18th anniversary of the end of this season, literally right now while I'm recording this. So maybe not when you're listening to this, but May 24th, 2004. That is when the finale aired, and today, May 24th, 2022. So 18-year anniversary. Very cool stuff. Finally, here from a high-level perspective, let's talk evolutions, firsts, and history made during this season, and then we'll dive in a little. We'll start to peel back the layers of some of the big storylines from the season. But evolutions. This is normally my favorite segment of the entire podcast, or at least it was for the first 7 seasons of the challenge. But once the Gauntlet introduced the eliminations, that was kind of the final big evolution that's going to take place. Every time, we're going to do this category for every single season all the way through, but it is going to become much more subtle from here on out, really, because they'd figured out the formula. There's going to be subtle things, people pulling from different shows, all kinds of stuff to come. But just know that while the first 7 seasons, it's like, whoa, this season, the first time they did this, they added this, they changed this. It's going to be a little bit more subtle moving forward. And this season, there was a lot of change, but it was really, really subtle change. They kind of had figured out that the Gauntlet, okay, that was a really good formula. That's the thing. We found it. We've put all the pieces together. We've tinkered. We found it. The Gauntlet was what the challenge would be from then on forward. But now how do we make it just a little different each time, a little better, a little, sometimes a little worse, honestly, although that's obviously not their intention. But with this one, the biggest evolution, there's 2 real ones to talk about. The first one is there had obviously been vets before. People had done multiple seasons before. This is not the first season to ever feature someone doing their second or third season or anything like that. But it is the first season to feature so many holdovers from the season before, the Gauntlet into the Inferno, and to be truly a sequel to a season that had come before. Well, obviously, the Gauntlet would go on to have a trilogy of seasons in the Gauntlet format, and the Inferno would go on to have a trilogy of seasons in the Gauntlet, or in the Inferno format. The Gauntlet 1 and Inferno 1 really were sequels. They were, as we've said over and over, they're filmed together. And there's 7 people from the previous cast that are then in this cast. That's 7 out of 20. That's a big percentage of the cast is from one season right into the next one, plus 6 more people that are vets, bringing it to 13 total out of the 20 people. I mean, that's a high percentage. We're talking 65% of the cast was vets, if not on their 3rd or 4th or 5th season. Speaking of, Veronica continues to reset her own record. This is her 5th season of the show in the first 8. So she has the record at this time by 2 over Ms., Coral, Cyrus, Julie, and Holly, who all 5 were back for their 3rd ever season. So the holdovers, the like true veteran status of this cast, and the first time where we really had, every time the people come in, they have their pre-existing storylines from Real World or Road Rules. Maybe they had an enemy from there. Maybe they had a romance from there, this, that, or the other. But this is the first season where it's like, whoa, all of these people here, the rookies, yes, they got their baggage from Real World Paris or whatever, but the holdovers, we've got people with a bunch of baggage from like 2 weeks ago when we were in Telluride, and we've got, a whole bunch of people who got baggage from Battle of the Sexes or Battle of the Seasons or Extreme Challenge. So that holdover is kind of an evolution of the first time where the game really stepped into, all right, these people are coming back for a lot of seasons. We're trying to bring pairs, trios back that make a lot of sense from. This storyline was really, really compelling and didn't fully finish. We didn't finish that arc, or there's more, could be more to it, or it just could cause a little rift, a little drama here or there. So bring those people back in, put them back in the house immediately, right again together. Trishelle and Mike, they had a relationship, they broke up, boom, they're back in the house immediately, weeks later, again, figure that one out. And so that's the first evolution. The second one then is within the format of the show, which is it really does evolve, but it is in the most subtle of ways where they truly do kind of say, all right, what we had before, the eliminations, that's key. That's the final big step. Boom, we got it. Real world people, road rules people. We have them, compete for some money. Then every time they compete for money in a daily challenge, then they do an elimination. They send someone home, and eventually those that make it at the end win a whole bunch of money. Great. That's the base format. We're keeping that. We'll tinker with it and do a couple things that we've done before, but a little differently. So the eliminations are here for their second season. The Lifesaver is here for the third or fourth time, but the cadence of how everything works is new. Instead of daily elimination all the way through, this time we got daily, then you do your nominations, then we do another daily with a Lifesaver up for grabs to take that nominated person and save themselves with the knowledge that they are playing to save themselves from the Inferno. Then we do an elimination. So it's 2 dailies and then elimination instead of the 1. The Lifesaver, for the first time, really has an impact. It's not really that impactful in the seasons it showed up before this. This time around, it very, very much is. It plays a massive role in the entire season. We'll talk plenty about that in a couple different storylines later. So that is new. The format has changed. And then the other small tweak they made to the elimination format is that the teams get to propose their own 2 names to put up. The other team gets to pick one from those 2 to put in, slightly different than the season before, where in the gauntlet, they get to just pick their own person from their team, and there's no way to change it out or anything of that nature. And again, the Lifesaver doesn't really matter in the season before that. So that's the format change. That is an evolution. A couple other things just from a firsts or history perspective of the challenge. We already talked about Veronica, 5th season, Ms. Coral Cyrus, Julie Holly, 3rd season. That's history as it goes. This continues to be history. Every time Veronica's on for a few more seasons, it's always the next level of the first person to do this many seasons, then this many, then this many, and then she holds it for quite a while after that. But we also had small evolution in my mind, mostly because I have such a soft spot in my heart for that pool outside the Wyndham Peaks Resort on the Gauntlet, being the Gauntlet Arena, not really being a big setup, nothing compared to what we would know today to be the Elimination Arena type setup they would have. This one kind of was. The Inferno was a dedicated, built to look cool space, built right on site, right outside of the house. The first real, elimination arena, if you will, with respect to the Wyndham Peaks Resorts hotel pool. And then we get, for the first time, Veronica, not only 5th ever season, first 3-time champ. Veronica wins for the 3rd time. She becomes the most decorated challenger in challenge history, which was already a title she held, but now she just extends it because 2 other people, a Holly and a Darrell, get their 2nd title ever, and so they're right on her heels. And Darrell and Veronica are the first ever back-to-back champions in challenge history, so that history is being made. And then the one we mentioned before, but we'll just quickly reference again, this is the longest season ever to date. There's some seasons nowadays that in runtime especially, far eclipse this. Total episodes are about the same as this, but by far the longest season ever to date at the time, because 17 episodes, 3 specials. That's 20 full episodes, and a couple of those are 40 minutes instead of 20 minutes. So by far, in a way, the longest season we had ever had. So with that, that's that's your high level. That's, what are we looking at? What do we got in our hands here? What is the challenge putting forward? What is the Inferno? The state the challenge was in, the basics of the show, the evolutions in the history that were made. With that, let's move from here and let's start peeling back some of these layers. And by layers, I mean storylines. Let's dive on in, get a little more detailed, and talk about some of the biggest stories that came from this season. Into the storylines we go, and a quick disclaimer from the top that the awards will be coming after the storylines, as they do on every one of these episodes. And the awards this season are going to be really good and really kind of break things out to be able to neatly talk about some of the biggest moments of the season within the awards discussion. So for this storyline portion of the podcast, if something fits neatly into an award category, we're going to probably wait and talk about it then. So if you keep listening to this and you're like, how the hell have we not talked about Julie almost killing Veronica or something of that nature, one of the many memorable moments, it may just be because it's coming later where it neatly fits into a nice category or award. So that disclaimer up top, but let's dive into the biggest stories of the season. And it is a season so packed with different storylines and very well cadenced with, there isn't the way the previous season, the Gauntlet, it was like, there's some stories going on, but this is really just the story of Sarah from beginning to end. And then other things pop up with it, but that one never goes away. This season is not like that. This season very much has 4 or 5 big kind of stories going on. And they're all popping up at different times. There's not one that is always there, always present the entire way through. They all exist throughout the whole thing, but they're popping up at different times. If you get what I'm not so eloquently trying to say, the only one that really lasts the entire time is the one we're going to start with, and that is Road Rules absolutely kicks Real World's ass again for the 4th out of 6 times. And this is the biggest ass kicking in the Real World versus Road Rules era of the show, or any of the times where it's Real World versus Road Rules in some sort of team setting. This is the biggest ass kicking anyone ever gets, and it's not even close. Road Rules wins 11 out of the 15 daily challenges, so they go 11-4 in daily challenges. And in eliminations, Road Rules go 6-2. That's a 74% win percentage across all daily challenges or eliminations for the whole season. 3 out of 4, no matter what they were doing, 3 out of 4, Road Rules was winning it. And you even throw into that, Road Rules was openly throwing multiple missions on this, which we'll talk about again in a second. But that even adds to the fact they weren't even trying some of the times, and they won 75. We'll round up from 74 to 75, shall we? 75% of the times, 3/4 of the time. They won basically everything all season long. And the mentality of the two shows is really shining through in this season. And it was actually really encapsulated quite well, quite eloquently by Christina from Road Rules South Pacific during the reunion special, which was then interrupted by Timmy being very funny. But let's hear her actually explain that from their point of view, the cast members' point of view.
I'm gonna start off by saying, Road Rules, you guys were victorious once again. It's getting kind of ridiculous, don't you think?
No, it ain't. It's not that way.
Real world thinks they're better than we are, but I mean, who wins the challenge?
Tell me why you guys seem so unstoppable.
Every time I see Mike, I rise to the occasion a little bit to whoop his ass once again.
It's really high. It's really high.
But now the girls really, though, like, we used to traveling and competing, and Real World used to arguing with each other. So that's why we whoop their ass every time. Simple as that.
Not every We feel like the underdogs.
Well,
We've always felt like the underdogs, so we overcompensate and we try to win.
We're taking up a collection for the Real World. You guys don't mind, you want to pitch in. They've lost a lot of challenges in the past. Please, everyone, donate. Thank you. I'll tell you what, Road Rules got lucky twice. Even a blind squirrel finds an acorn once in a while.
Timmy being hilarious about that aside, she has a very good point here, and I found it very interesting. That reunion, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but very, very good reunion, one of the better reunions they've ever had, probably, where they get into a lot of actual real interesting stuff about the show, this being one of the biggest ones. That, hey, Road Rules has now won 4 out of the 6 seasons that we've done this Real World versus Road Rules. And if we're being fair, Battle of the Seasons, Road Rules kind of was kicking ass most of the time. They just lost the final mission because Mike figured out the Hanoi Tower puzzle before anyone could on Road Rules, and that was basically it. So, Real World won the big money, but Road Rules was kind of better that season even too. But 4 out of 6. Why is this happening? Why is it so dominant one way? And it's pretty obvious and pretty simple and an easy explanation. Be like, yeah, Road Rules comes from a competition show where they all are doing competitions and these people are competitive. And that's what their entire show and what they think they're there to do. That's what they know. That's what they do. Real World, they live in a house and drama is the name of the game. Their show is great because just drama happens. Romance happens. People become best friends. People become worst enemies. If you take those two shows and you put them in a house and say, yeah, so Real World, we're basically going to do Road Rules season, but we're going to have more money on the line and you're going to stay here. You're not going to travel for it, but we're still doing Road Rules. This did all start as Road Rules All-Stars after all. So it's no wonder that Road Rules is way, more suited, and that their casts are more often casted for the purpose of and more suited to the challenge atmosphere at this time. So that makes total sense. But it's one of those, as you're watching the season, we've had seasons past where one team or the other, goes on runs and wins 5 dailies in a row or anything like that. But it always ebbs and flows a little bit. Even when one team at the end of you're like, oh, they really did kind of kick ass the whole time. There's ebbs and flows. There's, the women winning 2 or 3 challenges in a row at the end of Battle of the Sexes to really kind of even the numbers out. There's Real World winning on the gauntlet 2 dailies and 3 eliminations or whatever it was in a row in the back half of the season to kind of really make this comeback feel like it's this big comeback. This season, there's literally none of that. The 4 wins for the Real World are spread out. The 2 elimination wins are spread out. It basically feels every episode has Road Rules winning something. I think literally every episode. I don't think there's ever a back-to-back daily elimination, daily win for Real World. They just kick ass the whole time. They know it. They're confident in it. And for the second or third show in a row, the drama is really, really there on the Real World side, and the bickering and the how do we do the voting in, who's going to go in, are people afraid, not afraid, this, that, and the other, versus the Road Rules this entire season. They almost have no problems with who's going to go into the Inferno, who's going to be nominated. It's volunteers almost every single time. It's very cordial. The only single one is Katie, which we will talk about momentarily. So Road Rules kicks ass. That's the biggest storyline. Storyline number 2 is... could have been in the evolutions category, honestly, but is that these two teams both were focused on building a team for the final. And that never really happened before. So this really is kind of an evolution that I forgot to add into it. But for the first time ever, we were coming off a season where, the final was kind of won or lost on the fact that Coral got bit by a spider and was hospitalized and cost her team a whole bunch of time while they figured out that she wasn't just tired, but she was actually about to die. And so that really threw off the final, and Road Rules won. Not because of that, they were really good. They were probably a better team, but that was a big factor in the final mission for sure. And this is the first ever season where basically the whole time both teams are thinking about, hey, we want to win these dailies. $10,000 every time is great, but we want to make sure we win that $150,000 at the end, and we want to make sure that we don't have anyone on our team that we think is going to cause us to lose that. And it creates this storyline the entire season of trying to get specific people off of both teams. With Road Rules, it's specifically trying to get Katie off. In Real World, it's specifically trying to keep Katie on Road Rules. And eventually it becomes trying to get Leah off of Real World's team. And it's a story the whole time. It causes a whole lot of drama, but it's also just interesting from a strategic standpoint that this is the first time we see the people kind of being comfortable in the game. It comes back to, having all the veteran players, having Mike and Coral have done 2 real finals at this point. If we say that Extreme Challenge Season 4 was the first time they had a true final challenge, a real final challenge of any, with any length of endurance in it at all, then, we've had 3 of those, 4, 5, 6, and 7. We've had 4 of those. I can do math. We've had 4 of them. Cyrus has been a part of one. Julie's been a part of one. Miz and Coral have been a part of 2. Veronica's been a part of 2. Darrell's been a part of 1. Holly's been a part of 1. There's a lot of people that have been a part of 1, and the other cast that maybe haven't have probably watched the show now and seem to have an idea of how the game works and so they're thinking the whole season, hey, yeah, we just lost again. That sucks. We just lost another person. That sucks. But we want to get to the end. We want to get $150,000. And if there's less of us here to split it, that's fine, as long as it's the strongest people that are going to win that. And it's very interesting to see them really building a team for the final the entire time and weighing the pros and cons of, especially on the road rule side, hey, we keep winning. We keep sending only their players home. That's a good thing, right? We're like, we want everyone here at the end, right? Or do we not? And it plays out. And that specific targeting does lead to the third big overarching storyline, which is everyone is fighting on this season. I shouldn't say everyone, respectfully. I should say there is always a major fight going on at all points, every stage, every episode of this season. There's a handful of people involved, 2 people per fight, usually with some people on the outer skirts of some of them. But so it's not everyone, but it is every single episode, every single day, every single week. The entire time they're there, someone, when one fizzles out, another one sparks up. When that one's maybe run its course, a new one comes back or pops up. And we get fight after fight after fight and argument after argument. And if this was a prime time, we didn't have enough of them yet, but 14 seasons from this moment, we would have the debut of the Rivals era of the challenge. And man, there was a lot of rivals being made on this season. They could have gotten around to a rival season earlier, because we start with Coral versus Julie. Coral versus Julie was a big thing the whole season. Coral comes in, and while we don't get a full explanation, seemingly she's friends with Melissa from Real World New Orleans, or just watched Battle of the Sexes and thought Melissa versus Julie was a funny, interesting thing, because Coral shows up with a shirt that says Melissa will kill you. I believe it's what it says on it. And it is a direct reference to, she says it's a reference to Julie and Melissa's falling out and argument that they would have back on Battle of the Sexes. And Julie and Coral don't like each other from the start. And Julie feels like the entire time Coral is manipulating every single one of the deliberations, and she's kind of the one really picking who's getting nominated every single time and isn't doing it maybe the most fair way. And Julie wants it to be strictly on performance and a little bit wants it to kind of be her way versus just Coral's way. She has some points. She doesn't handle arguing her points perfectly every time, because Coral definitely does. Coral is the voice of her team for sure on this season, for the second, if not third season that they've been on together. Coral and Mike really are the team leaders of Real World, and where in the past it was the two of them, but Mike was like the captain. This time around, because likely them coming in with Mike having betrayed Coral a little bit on the season before, even with what happened to Coral in the Gauntlet final, Coral kind of is running the show here the whole time. No one wants to step to her on Real World's team. No one feels like they really need to either, except for Julie. And her and Julie go at it. They argue over and over and over, and then it eventually boils to a head when Julie gets nominated for an Inferno when she feels like it should probably be Coral, and Julie then gets picked to go into the Inferno. She's going in against Katie. They both are mad at the same time, like both of their teams don't want them there at the same time. And Julie decides, all the guys, they've been wrestling the whole time. The guys are constantly wrestling in the yard on this season. And she decides she wants to settle this whole thing with Coral the way the men have been settling it. She wants to wrestle. She yells, she screams, she goes off, she goes in and she tells everyone, I want to wrestle Coral right now. They had a big verbal argument. They go their separate ways. And then, Julie says to all the other guys, to CT and everyone else standing around, I want to wrestle her. I want to wrestle on the yard, and then this is going to be done. We can just all move on. It can be over. We'll settle this the way the men in the house do. CT goes and tells Coral. Coral responds in only a way that Coral can respond. One of the epic, iconic, most memorable moments in quotes in challenge history. Here it is from her.
She wants to fight you in the grass.
Give me a break, Coral.
She wants to wrestle you in the grass. Go downstairs.
She wants to hit me?
No, she wants to wrestle you.
I don't wrestle. I beat bitches up.
She does not end up beating any bitches up. Thankfully, she decides that since she doesn't wrestle, since she only beats bitches up, and they're not allowed to do that there, she does not follow through. We then find out, this kind of dissipates. Julie goes into the elimination. She ends up losing to Katie in an upset, a little bit of an upset, and she goes home, and that's kind of the end of that argument. But then at the reunion special, we find out that that wasn't the end of the argument, that when Coral says, no, Julie, I will not wrestle you, that Julie went and pissed on Coral's bed. And I can't believe, I mean, I get that they save it for, it's the first thing they show in the reunion when they do the unseen footage. And it's unbelievable. It's so great. It's a minute-long thing about the fact that Julie went and peed on Coral's bed as retaliation for her not being willing to wrestle her. And I can't believe they didn't put this in the actual show, but it works out well that, they saved this unbelievably great, juicy nugget for the reunion special to do some unseen footage. And maybe the reason they don't put it in the actual show is because somehow, if you never knew this, if you watch the Inferno and remember the Inferno, and you remember their fight, their argument, you remember, I don't wrestle, I fucking beat bitches up. You remember that, but you don't remember anything after it. You're like, I've never heard about this. If I told you, I'm filling you in for the first time, that after that happened, after Coral said that and wouldn't wrestle Julie, that Julie pissed on Coral's bed that night, within minutes, not while Coral was in it. She didn't know. She found out about it later, and she went and she asked around everyone, how did it happen? If I told you that Coral was unbelievably calm and laughed about the whole thing and just couldn't have cared less, you would never believe that. You'd be like, wait, no. Coral went and knocked her out, right? That's when the beating bitches up started. No. She somehow, which is, I guess, why it's probably not on the show, because she's so calm about it. She laughs about it. She has David explain to her. She's like, no, you saw her do it. Like, I want to know how did she do it? Like, did she throw one leg up? Did she stand on top of the bed? Did she lay down? Like, explain everything to me. She's just laughing about it. And it's a pretty short clip during the reunion, and then they kind of move on pretty quickly afterwards. They're all just like laughing and happy that they showed it. Julie is not there to discuss it. The reunion only features the people that made the final, which is the only bad part about the reunion, because they kind of talk about stuff with Trishelle and stuff with Julie a whole bunch, and they're not there to give their side of the story. But either way, unbelievable moment. Coral versus Julie. A lot came out of this, and they would have been an unbelievable rivals pair if they would have went to a rivals season earlier in the time frame of the show. Second big fight then of the season was Veronica versus Katie. We get a lot out of this one. Veronica is kind of the leader, the earliest leader, although it's a full team effort. Veronica does spearhead that effort to some degree of, we need to get Katie off the team. If she's here for the final, that's going to be a real, big loser. And so she throws multiple missions, or she is the one that suggests throwing the mission. She kind of brings up the idea. And again, this is not all Veronica. Veronica just takes the brunt of Katie's ire for all of this, but it is the entire team. Everyone is on board except for Kendall, who they kind of just don't tell from time to time when they're doing these things. But Veronica helps, lead the throw one mission when it's Katie, and the first time around it's Katie and someone else that are up for nominations. Real World will never pick Katie to go into the Inferno because they want her there. They think she's not the best player too, and they think having a not good player on the other team is an advantage. So they're strategically like, we're never picking her. The only way you're going to get her is if the person who is in the elimination wins the lifesaver and then replaces themselves with Katie. They throw one mission to do just this. It causes a lot of drama. Katie's going at Veronica. She's going at everyone. She's very unhappy. She wins the elimination. She's back. Her and her team make nice. She starts performing quite well, to be honest, and they even recognize that she's performing quite well. She does well. They make it all the way to the end, and then the final elimination, it is Veronica who is going into the Inferno, and Katie is the other nominee. Veronica then, without throwing the mission, just straight up wins. And a mission where everyone tries their best. She wins the lifesaver and happily, gleefully throws Katie into the final Inferno in her place. Katie wins again, but this time when Katie wins, she comes back into the house and shit pops off.
Stupid bitch! Shut the don't with me once again! Yeah, laugh, whore! Laugh! Idiot! Everybody knows it! Slut! You heard me, whore!
I'm thinking the girl is clinically insane.
When I was talking to Kendall, did it involve your skank ass? No, it didn't, bitch! It did not! So shut the up! What? Shut the up! Shut the up! You are a short
that is only that's 60 seconds of what is about 3 minutes worth of the two women yelling at each other in some respect. Then another minute or two on the front and back end of that, of them, getting worked up and then cooling down. Miz has to talk Katie down, literally like help her like breathe slower, talks. And he's like, all right, you literally have to sit here in timeout. I'm going to go get your purse that you say you don't go anywhere without. We're going to the club. We're leaving this house. We're just leaving in general. And you're not coming back here until you're better. Veronica, for her part, couldn't care less. She just doesn't want Katie there. And so they have that big blowout. That's not the only time of the season they kind of go at each other. They have words with each other, but certainly the biggest, loudest, nearly gets physical version of it. And gotta say, they're both standing up for each other. They're both saying some nasty shit to each other. So that's not great. This is the first season of the show where it's really... We'll talk a lot about it when we grade the full season, but this is the first version of the show where they get right up to that line of, I'm not rooting for these people to do any of these things. I don't want to root for them to say these things to each other, but also I'm very entertained by the drama and by the fighting and the arguing and the threats and the backstabbing and the conniving. And it's a weird thing to balance as a fan and as a viewer. Like, this is really, really entertaining, but also these people are kind of acting nasty. But like, I love Veronica. Like Veronica's at this point in the show, she is my absolute number one favorite person on the show. And so even if she slings some bad insults, like I'm kind of like, it's fine. Like I'm very entertained by it. It's not going to affect my opinion in any sort of way. What else is going to happen in this house? And when Katie's saying some, foul stuff back, I'm not thinking anything of it at all. But you do have to find that balance while watching. And that balance is obviously something over the history of the show that we've referenced before. It is that fine line that reality shows in general, and certainly the challenge has to walk between, do I feel good about everything that's happening? No, certainly not. Are these any good characteristics, good morals, anything of that nature being, put on display? No, but is it absolutely entertaining, and is any of it actually over a line that I'm uncomfortable with? At this moment, in this instance, this season, no, not at all. It's absolutely fantastically entertaining, and everyone's safe and comes out of it totally fine. And some people don't like some people, and that's all great. Then we've walked up to that line. In the future, if that line likely will, we know, we're obviously talking about this 18 years later. We know that line will unfortunately be crossed a few times in the future, but this season they walk it pretty tight and narrow. They really nail it, and it's entertaining, but it does have a weird feeling when, we'll do the best moment or the most iconic moment award in a little bit. And none of the moments, they're all super memorable. They're iconic in their own way. They're notorious in their own way, we should say. But they're not all the most feel-good, heartwarming moments that earlier seasons of the show is usually a little more like what moments made us feel the best, what some really good people doing some good things for each other on this. And all the nastiness is, everyone, it's only one person and everyone else is putting it down. This season, not so much. So we had Coral versus Julie, Veronica versus Katie, and then Leah versus CT as well. They come in, they'd had their issues on Real World Paris. Midway through the season, Leah has a panic attack during one of the heights challenge, they have to bungee jump in one time, and she goes up, has a full-blown panic attack. They end up taking her to the hospital. She has ongoing anxiety issues that triggered this, and they actually, surprisingly, the show itself, I'd kind of forgotten this happened. And if you would have just told me, hey, season 8, 2004 MTV challenge, someone dealing with real anxiety issues has a full-blown panic attack, how do you think they handled that? I'd be like, oh, damn, 2004 challenge MTV, probably not great. They weren't super up to date on the whole mental health thing then. Not that they would have been alone. And then actually, they kind of handled it pretty well. Production side for certainly. And, Leah talks about it pretty openly and is really good and honestly feels like something that would be more on now, where we're much more aware of those things. We're a little more comfortable as a society and culture and talking about those things and supporting each other and acknowledging that damn near every one of us has struggles of that kind, of whatever severity they may be, but they all deserve to be, supported and everything. So it's actually really nice, except with the small exception of they do decide that after this happens, they're like, hey, for a couple challenges in a row, there's heights again involved like immediately after. And these are in the days of the challenge where they're doing a challenge every day, if not every other day at the worst. And so for a couple days and a couple daily challenges, they're like, Leah, we're not going to have you compete in this one. The doctor said, we're going to give you a little more time before we do this. Your team doesn't get penalized or anything for it, but you're just not competing, which leads to CT reverting back to he and Leah had gotten on better footing throughout this season. But then he reverts back to she shouldn't be here. She's our weak link. She's not even able to compete in some of these. And so I feel like she, doesn't deserve to be here the same way we do. And that's when they, as a real world team, scheme to throw a mission to get Leah into an Inferno. And there's a big blow up between the two of them. And it leads to, it's one part of a really nasty Inferno that we will talk more about in a little bit. But those are the big fights. Fighting is a key storyline of the season. Next big storyline, romance. We will just brush through this as fast as we can. But there is a lot of romance this season. Mike, the Miz, Mizanin, of course he is here. And of course that means he's going to have a girlfriend. Every single season he's on, he gets romantic with someone. Battle of the Seasons, it was him and Tara. Battle or the Gauntlet, it was him and Trishelle. Him and Trishelle left that season, boyfriend, girlfriend. Turns out the couple weeks they were back home between Telluride and Acapulco, things didn't go so well. They decided to break up, and they live in LA where a bunch of other MTV cast people, including Kendall, who is then on this season with Mike and Trishelle, lives. They're all buddies and friends. Everything's okay between Mike and Trishelle, but then they come on this season, and Mike and Kendall have a little romance, flares up. Trishelle doesn't like it, but then Trishelle goes home, and so Mike and Kendall are like, okay, great. We don't even have that, distraction or anyone being upset about seeing us do this. But then Mike gets a call from his best buddy at home, who happens to be running buddies with Kendall. He claims that he and Kendall have something. Kendall later is like, what are you talking about? That's just my running buddy at the reunion. But Trishelle, the moment she leaves the show, tells all their friends back home that Mike and Kendall are hooking up left and right, and they can't be separated, which at the time of the phone call and the time of Trishelle saying all this is not true. It would eventually become true, but it's not true at that moment. Mike and Kendall, they have a romance throughout the season then. There's drama around it. It's just kind of status quo for Mike on the challenge at this point. There is a real nasty moment of that, which we will talk about when we talk about Kendall's performance in the brick by brick elimination later during the awards. We have Leah and Darrell the whole season. Darrell at one point says pretty openly that he and Leah, they're getting after it morning, night, afternoon, any old time of the day, multiple times a day. They're just spending all their time not at a daily or not at an elimination. They're spending it together and having a good time and hooking up. And it's great. It's wonderful. They're both pretty open the whole time. Darrell seems to be pretty open the whole time of like, this isn't anything serious. It's just, we're having fun. We like each other while we're here. When Leah has her, panic attack hospital episode, Darrell does realize like, I really care about this person. He's really sweet. In that moment, he, steps up. He doesn't exactly know what to do. He lets Coral kind of handle being the supporter instantly, but then comes and says like, hey, I'm not used to this. And I'm glad Coral was there, which is a really nice moment, a really vulnerable kind of open moment of like, no, you're going through something right now and you wanted me to support you, but like, I have no idea how to. And so like Coral was, so I let that happen. It's a very interesting moment. Then though, he does not support her super well during the horrible brick by brick Inferno situation in which her and CT do a lot of yelling at each other. And that's when Leah ends up going home, but also when her and Darrell maybe stop being a thing because she confronts him about, you didn't stand up for me. And his reasoning is, you and CT having words. If I have words with anyone, I'm a boxer. I just move to punching someone very, very quickly. If I was going to stand up for you, it was going to mean I was going to end up punching CT. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to go home and I don't want to fight CT. Somewhat fair points from his part. It would be nice if he could stand up for her without punching someone, or just could stand up for anyone in general without punching someone, something I think he's more than capable of now. But then coming off, very high-ranked amateur boxer at the time, we get it. They fizzle out, but is fun and cute while it lasts. Maybe we find out at the reunion David and Veronica maybe had a little thing going, but we never see anything about it. And then we also find out at the reunion that maybe everyone on the cast, guy, gal, every single person there was trying to see Coral's boobs. Just Coral's boobs were a topic of conversation quite throughout the entire season for the entire cast, it seems. So that was also a funny little video that they showed of never before seen footage from the reunion. But romance was everywhere. And then we've got two other storylines to get through here. Maybe the biggest story really of the season for me, there's a few moments, some we've already mentioned, some we will mention soon enough, that will be the most memorable things from this season because they're some of the most memorable moments in the history of the show. But when I think of the Inferno, the first thing I will think of is these eliminations are weird as fuck. They are so strange. They're really going for the kind of horror show, creepy, disgusting endurance theme. It's kind of the creepy, disgusting endurance theme is with a little dash of torturous vibe thrown in. They really build the arena, the Inferno itself. You walk down in, they comment multiple times how hot it is down in this room. They got all these bright red lights going, and they really make it out to be, this fiery, flamey, hell-like area that they go down to do these eliminations. And every elimination they do is fucking weird. It is so strange. It doesn't match really anything we see from any other seasons. There's individual eliminations like this spotted throughout the history of the show, but there is never a collection of eliminations like this. Let me quickly just run through all 8 of the eliminations, what they had to do for these eliminations. And again, all endurance based, if you will. So the first one is called Bug Helmet. Jeremy and Ace play it. Jeremy beats Ace. Bug Helmet is where you cover your head in syrup and then you put your head in a tank full of crickets and hissing cockroaches, and whoever can hold their head there the longest wins. That one does not last long at all, as Ace just immediately is like, no, fuck this, and runs and jumps in the pool, gets it all off his head, and just pieces out. So that's pretty weird, I would say. A little, I guess the easiest comp for this, it's very Fear Factor-esque, a lot of these are. That's a great comp, which at the time, I believe, without looking up right now, and don't want to pause this to look up, but Fear Factor going strong, big presence, another competition reality show I guess I could have mentioned in the beginning and kind of the state of the challenge in the reality television world, but that's a good comp for these. Very, very Fear Factor based. So first one, Bug Helmet. That's that. Second one then is called Chili Counter, which Holly beats Trishelle in a game where it's just you have 1 hour to eat as many super hot chili peppers as you can. You can drink as much milk as you want with it, but you have to eat as many hot chili peppers as possible in 1 hour. Horrifying. Third one then is the only one that's kind of makes sense. It's the only one that adds a real physical element in any way, and that is Human Candelabra, where Mike beats Jeremy. They have to hold burning candles out at shoulder height while it melts, and they can't drop it below shoulder height. First to do that loses, and if they hold it long enough, that candle wax is going to slowly drip down on their hands. They actually don't get to that level. Again, the only one that's really physical based but it's still an endurance physical base. It's who can hold their arms out the longest, basically. And then we get to all of the very, very long ones, because after Human Candelabra, then we have Noise Pollution, which is truly horrific and torturous and so dumb and boring and is a huge miss from production standpoint. But that is where poor Christina and Mallory have to stand and put headphones on and listen to random horrible sirens and noises and babies wailing in their headphones at loud volumes for 3.5 hours. And then if they both make it, which they do, at the end of 3.5 hours, they have to do the same thing, but standing on one foot on a little peg, and whoever falls over first loses. That's pretty horrible. Then there is Don't Toss Your Cookies. CT steps in and beats Shane, where they have to eat 1 cookie, drink a glass of milk, then sit for 10 minutes on a spinning chair, then 2 cookies, 2 milk, spinning chair, over and over until someone throws up. Shane throws up pretty quickly in the second round or so, but a very strange one again. Then there is Scratchathon. Katie beats Julie in walking on a treadmill for 3.5 hours with itching powder put on your skin by the opposing team and then a tracksuit over it, then just walk on a treadmill for 3.5 hours while your body itches like crazy. They eventually both make it 3.5 hours. So they go to the tiebreaker where it's who can jump rope the longest, and Katie wins that. Then we have Brick by Brick elimination we'll talk a lot about in a few minutes, but carry 1 brick at a time across the plank and put it in a new stack on the other side. for 3.5 hours. One brick at a time, not multiple bricks, one at a time. You drop a brick, you lose, which one of them should have just dropped a brick so that it could be over. But 3.5 hours of two people walking back and forth, one brick at a time, 12 feet from one pile to the other. They move like 400 and some bricks or something like that. It's insane and silly and weird. And then finally, smell you later, the worst of them all. Katie beats David in sitting for 4 hours in a tank full of fish heads, rotten eggs, cow tongues, and livers, amongst other disgusting things that are poured into them. Every half hour, something new disgusting is poured in. They sit for 4 hours. They both make it for all 4 hours, and then they have to hold their breath in that disgusting tank. Whoever holds it longest wins. Those are your endurance, Fear Factor-esque, creepy, horrific, torturous at times eliminations that are played this season. It's so weird. It's so strange. It's a huge miss from the show. It's the biggest negative, the biggest con of this entire season is that these eliminations are so weird and all, there's a lot of interesting storylines of them because of who's in them or who's facing each other, who wins, a couple upsets. But the games themselves are not interesting. Like, it's not interesting to watch Kendall and Leah carry bricks for 3.5 hours. It's not interesting to watch two people just sit in a disgusting vat of stuff for, 3.5 hours. It's not interesting to watch Katie and Julie walk on a treadmill for 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever it is, or two people listen to noise for 4 hours. It's not interesting. So it's the biggest miss of the season. And the other reason it's a huge miss, which probably worked out in their favor, is that the whole time everyone's drinking. All of these, are 6 of these 8 of them are guaranteed to last 3 to 4 hours, if not longer. And everyone in the cast that's not participating is just chilling, drinking. So they're sitting in a very hot environment, just chugging drinks. They go up to the house and refill as often as they want. And that leads to some really nasty moments and fights and things, which, the show is hoping for, but it's not a great look when it's just people sitting for 4 hours drinking in a hot environment. Some people are sleeping constantly. Abe takes naps all the time in the Inferno. 2 or 3 different Infernos. He can be found just laying down, taking a nap. Like, I'm just not, how are we supposed to be entertaining for the camera for 4 hours when these two people are just walking on a treadmill? What do you want from me? So Elimination's very weird. It's a big storyline of the season. And then the final storyline, before we head into the awards to talk about some of the most memorable of moments and quotes and performances and things of that nature, is the specials were the best specials ever. I say it with a question mark, but also definitively. I thought I was going to say it with a question mark, but now I'm saying it definitively. I don't even have to really think through. I can't remember any time that they did such a good job on the reunion and other specials around the show. The reunions I'm just really, over the course of the challenge history, I'm not a super big fan. I don't think most of them are ever very interesting or good or all that necessary in any way. And oftentimes some of the specials that they do, and especially in this era of the show, like the special they did before Battle of the Sexes, I found not very interesting at all. And not, don't really need to do it. Don't even think I mentioned it on the podcast about it because it was just kind of like, yeah, that was there. This one, however, 3 of them, as we said previously, and they're all really good. The first one, the battle scars from the Gauntlet to the Inferno, worked so well and was so great to set up the season and connect the 2 seasons. And it works even better knowing that they literally had these back to back. And so it was like, hey, this show ended last week. This is everything that happened those last, you've been watching for 15 weeks on that show. All this happened. Let's recap it. Now let's preview what's about to happen on these next 15 weeks on this show. It's really, really good. And, it's better than a reunion for the Gauntlet in some respects. I would have liked some maybe more commentary from the Gauntlet people as kind of like a mini reunion segments thrown in. But, that's, picking straws there. Also, the fact that it aired, the week after the final, we just said that. Just keeps things right on running. But I really, really liked that special. And then the end of season pre-finale recap, the final burn special, where they recap everything that's happened in the first 15 episodes and get you set up for the final 2-part, 40-minute, 2-episode, 1 episode, however you want to look at it, finale episode. That one was really, really good. It was really helpful for, hey, if you tuned out at some point, if you haven't caught every episode, here's just what you need to know about the cast of characters that are left going into this final. And then the reunion's really, really good. Lala is a really good host. At that time, she's, firmly in the MTV world as an MTV DJ, VJ, I think they call it VJ, whatever at the time, whatever it was. Lala, great host, asked the right questions. It's a tight 20 minutes. There's not a lot of fluff. Every question has a real purpose to it. It actually gets to something interesting. We played the one clip from it before, and we mentioned before the only negative about the reunion at all is it's only the cast from that made it to the final. And so when they're, talking about Julie or they're talking about Trishelle, it's a little tough, but it is nice to see a Cyrus, great guy Cyrus, stepping up and kind of defending Julie a little bit for like, hey, let's remember like where Julie came from and that the fact she's literally grown up and come out of this one very odd world into the odd world of the challenge and grown up on TV in front of us. And that's, an influence, and she's great. And I like her. Great moment from him. Katie steps in and makes everyone stop talking when they're starting to talk bad about Trishelle. She's like, that's my best friend. She lives with me. She's not here to defend herself. So we're all going to shut the hell up and move on now. And Lala respectfully and smartly is like, that's a good answer. Let's move on to the next thing. Reunion's good. Final Burn's good. Battle Scars is good. Best specials they've ever done. I've said over and over and over, I think every single season should do an episode 0 that is just everyone getting to the house in a where are they now, catch us up, no dailies, no elimination, no nothing, just everyone at the house, night one party, show us everything that you can from that night. But in lieu of that, we're way far out from ever having any of those appear. These 3 specials were as good as it got. Time to hand out some hardware. We've got a bunch of awards to go through, and talking through these awards will allow us to also talk through some of the unbelievable moments from this season of the Inferno that we haven't yet touched on. We will start a little different order for our awards for this episode, an order that makes a little bit more sense, if you will. We're going to start with the best daily challenge. There's 4 of them I just want to comment on. And one of them that, of course, we haven't commented on yet. And so we will now, if you've been waiting for it. Arguably one of the most memorable moments in the history of the show. That is the Grope the Rope Daily Challenge, episode 1, where Julie tries to kill Veronica. They have to. The challenge is they're at 2 very tall buildings. I don't know, 30 stories tall, whatever. They're 22, I believe, stories up at this. And they're at a balcony, and they're about 50 feet, I don't know how, 50, 60 feet away from a balcony on another side. And they've got, a line set up, and you slide down. You're in a little harness. You slide out zip line style halfway down. And when you get to the halfway point, it stops. You get out of your harness and use your hands and feet and crawl along, shimmy along, however you can get yourself along the rest of the line to the other balcony. And you are attached at all times. Very important. You are attached by a safety bungee harness so that if, and inevitably when, some of the people can't hold themselves up with their hand and feet to shimmy across this line, if you fall, you do a short bungee. It's not like you fall hundreds of feet because you would swing and hit the building. It's not where it's like a 10-foot, like you fall and then boom, you catch, but it's very scary. And it's very important that we mention that they have that little safety bungee, and that the first 50%, you're in a harness itself. You're sitting in like a little swing-like harness that slides out to the 50% mark. Then you're supposed to crawl out and do the rest of it on your own. Julie and Veronica is the whole story here. Nothing else is the story. Julie and Veronica go almost last, not quite last, but almost last. They're up against each other. And the other rule of this daily challenge is that at any point, you are allowed to, using your hands only, not your feet, but you are allowed to push or try to pull your opponent off of their line to give them a DQ. You are allowed to do that. You are allowed to push or pull the person themselves off. You're not necessarily supposed to mess with any, things like the safety harness. But Julie and Veronica go, they're near the end, and being near the end, that means that they kind of know where the team's average scores are at, and Real World's way behind. They've had a disqualification. Road Rules has not. So Julie is told beforehand, hey, whatever you got to do, you got to get Veronica off of that. You got to knock her down. You got to grab her. You got to pull her off. You got to get her to DQ, and you can't. That's the only way we have a chance here. So she goes up with the mindset, I'm going to get this chick off. No doubt in my mind. So they go out in the little harness, the swing. Julie starts pulling on her. And eventually, Dave Muir, Veronica's like, I'm not even going to get out of the little swing thing because Julie's just trying to get me off. I'm happy with both of us DQing. There is a time limit. So she's like, if I just sit here, we'll both DQ, and that's fine by me. Where it's equal. So, standings stay where they are. Dave Mirra blows a horn and says, hey, you have 1 minute to get out of the harness and actually try to get over here right now. And at that point is when Julie decides to do anything, literally anything, to get Veronica out, including grabbing the safety harness.
You guys have 1 minute to get back over here. So start racing. Go.
What's the safety latch?
Julie!
You clearly could see Julie grabbing the safety harness, yanking it, and you got about 10 people on the porch screaming.
Don't touch the safety line! What are you doing? What are you doing? What is she doing? What are you doing? No! What are you doing? Don't touch the safety line! Julie! What are you doing?
It's all crazy. All I knew is that I had 1 minute to get her down. I mean, that's just the nature of the game. I have nothing against the girl, but I'm going to try and win. It's $10,000.
Veronica, I don't hate you, baby. I was just trying to win. Shut the up. I would not have taken your cord off. I couldn't have if I wanted to. You know that's true. Shut the up.
All-time shocking moment, all-time scary moment. Veronica has every right to be like, I'm about to die here. She is yanking on the safety bungee harness, trying to unclip or take off the only thing saving me from falling 22 stories to my death up here. What is going on? It's a moment that lives in challenge history forever. It is easily recognizable and memorable, and for not great reasons, given that one person was, while not trying to murder them necessarily, it was, if they would have succeeded in the thing they were kind of trying to do, the end result very well probably would Veronica falling. So thankfully, those safety lines, good job production, your safety apparatus is so secure that challengers can't figure out how to undo it, even if they wanted to try to take someone else out of the game, literally, and out of life. So that's a huge moment. It's unbelievable. It's way, way, way up there in iconic moments. It'll come up again when we talk that category. But as far as daily challenge goes, it makes for an incredibly memorable daily challenge. So that's nominee number 1 for best daily challenge, Grope the Rope. Second nominee, Wreck and Roll, episode 3. This one, they asked 2 teams. Yellow Card is there. Yellow Card is the band. Great band. I love them. Ocean Avenue, fantastic song. Always loved that song growing up as a little emo punk teenager that I was. Yellow Card sings the theme song to this season, which actually isn't a theme song. It's just a song of Yellow Cards that they use as the opening credits song. But they also bring Yellow Card in to play one of their, at the time, hit songs as a timer while the 2 teams get to smash a hotel room. They give both teams a fake hotel room that they've built out. 2 people for each team actually get to use guitars to smash, have to use guitars to smash stuff. Everyone all at the same time for the length of about 3.5 minutes of time that Yellow Card is jamming out to one of their hit songs. They get to smash everything in the room and take everything they smash. They have to smash it small enough to get it to put in these little holes into these big containers. The most weight in wins. It is a hell of a good time. I'm a little biased because I actually like the Yellow Card song that they're playing, so I'm like jamming out. And it just looks like so much fun. They all get to just smash for 3.5 minutes, all out. Crazy. They, living out the dream of, they, put it forward as, you're the rock star who trashes the hotel room, just is all out of control, crazy, good time. It looks fun. It's one of the most competitive of the daily challenges of the season, which is, asking a lot this season. And it's really, really fun all around. Everything about it's great. Then there's Come Sail Away, episode 9, the third nominee. This one has to be mentioned. This is where Dave Mirra shows up. He takes them. They're posted up outside of a cruise. The cruise has pulled and docked and ported in Acapulco, and they're outside the cruise ship. And Dave's like, "All right, this cruise ship is here for the day for like 10 hours, and here's 100 random, really weird items: car batteries, piñatas, hats, bikinis, noisemakers, children's toys, bubbles, all kinds of just weird, eclectic." Random stuff, and the 2 teams have to one at a time take things from the table to build their inventory out, and then they get 3.5 hours to sell the inventory they've built out and make as much money as possible. So they're street vendors. They create their own little street market, street vendors, and this has a moment where CT puts on a pink bikini, has Timmy being hilarious in his little clown get up, saying that these, hangers belong to famous actors, or this belongs to this person, and lying out of his teeth to try to sell stuff. all of them. It's very comedic. It's very fun. It's very weird and silly. It is one of the peak moments of like, remember when the challenge was just super silly carnival-like games? Like, hey, why don't you guys are street vendors with shit in for inventory? How would that work? How would that be for television? It's pretty good. It's really funny. It's nominated for Best Daily Challenge. And then the fourth and final one is Bungee Bound, which is a Houdini-style bungee jump. They have to bungee jump about 160 feet, and their hands are clipped together behind their back by 3 carabiners. And the goal is the moment they jump, they are allowed to start trying to unclip themselves from the 3 carabiners. Once they have unclipped fully, releasing themselves from the handcuffs, they take a flag out of their chest pocket and throw it, and that stops their time. So it's kind of like a legitimate, like little, magic trick, escape trick type thing. And it's really fun. And the bungee jumps are always really interesting. And then it also has the interesting subplot of Leah having her panic attack and, learning a little bit about that situation. And so everything about it, very, very good. So those are your 4 Best Daily Challenge nominees. But as this award is for the Best Daily Challenge, not the daily challenge that has the greatest moment or most memorable moment within it, I'm going to go with the actual Best Daily Challenge is Episodes 3, Wreck and Roll. If I could pick any of these to get to do, as I always like to say, Buena Murray, Paramount, build me the amusement park where I can do challenge games, survivor games with my friends. This is the one I would want to do the most. Wreck and Roll gets the win for the Best Daily Challenge. Next up, we have the Best Elimination of the season. Second season now that we're able to have this award. 3 nominees. Now, we told you what all of these eliminations were beforehand, but now we'll actually talk a little bit about what happens in each of them and why they're memorable and why they're nominated for the best of the 8 eliminations that we get this season. First one is Don't Toss Your Cookies, Episode 10, CT versus Shane. Eating the cookies. They have to eat a cookie and glass of milk, sit for 10 minutes on spinning chair, eat 2, drink 2, spinning chair, and continue on and up. It doesn't get past the second round. Shane throws up and loses, but CT steps in for David during it. We find out throughout the season, David and CT grew up together. Their moms were really good friends in Boston, and they both ended up on Real World on different seasons. Now they're here. They have a nice bond throughout the season. David's going in. He's a little worried about it, and he doesn't love to eat necessarily, even if it's cookies and milk. CT knows that, so CT steps in for him, and when he does, it's kind of an iconic moment, early moment for CT, one of his really only big moments of the season, honestly. He's got the shades on, this pink shirt. He'd given his clothes to David and was wearing some of David's clothes, actually. And Shane admits that in the moment that David is out and CT's in, he goes from confident to intimidated.
And I just can't chance on losing them, so I'm gonna have to step up.
That's a man! That's a man! Bye, Shane!
I'm not afraid of David, but I have a lot of trepidation facing CT. I hate to admit it, but CT intimidates me.
Somebody vomits.
I know CT knows he intimidates me. When CT stepped in, I was just like, you for on my game.
Appreciate the honesty from Shane, because anyone that says they're not intimidated by CT, especially at this time frame, you're lying to yourself and to all of us. So CT beats him. There's comedy within it. There's it's CT having a moment in his first season. So the whole thing, and it's kind of one of the least torturous of the elimination. So it's nominated for sure. Then we've got Scratchathon. Katie versus Julie in the put scratching or itching powder all over your body, tracksuit on, walk on a treadmill for 3.5 hours, and then ends up coming down to a tiebreaker. They have to jump rope versus each other. Julie's all confident. She's like, oh, I can jump rope for hours. I jumped rope all the time as a kid. This is no problem. She's stretching her rope out, getting it nice and fit. Katie seems like, I don't really know exactly how to do this that well. She's doing the whole 2-foot hop. They both practice for a second, and you immediately in the practice, you're like, oh, this is... Can Katie jump rope for 3 seconds? Julie looks like she's a professional. And then suddenly they say go, and Julie falters about 10 seconds in, and Katie's just going strong, and Katie wins. And it's a big upset, and it leads to the beginnings of the real fights between Katie and her team. It's an interesting elimination because both teams are rooting for the opposite person. Real World wants Julie gone. They're rooting for Katie. Road Rules wants Katie gone. They're rooting for Julie. Both Julie and Katie kind of hate their teams at this point. So there's a lot going on during this very weird of all of the weird eliminations. And then the third and final one nominated is the brick by brick elimination. And we're going to postpone talking about it here because we're going to talk about it again in a moment. So brick by brick, Kendal beats Leah. She steps in for Timmy to do so. We'll talk about it more in a second because it's very ugly, but the ugliness leads to a very bright spot for Kendal and an unbelievable performance, which will be nominated for Best Athletic Performance, which is next, but right now does not win the Best Elimination because the Best Elimination of the season, if I had to rewatch one over and over, the one I was most entertained by, the one that was kind of the most interesting, had all the elements you would want in this season of Weird Eliminations. The best one was Don't Toss Your Cookies, CT stepping in, beating Shane in the cookie milk spin around elimination that was. As for the best athletic performance of the season, with the eliminations being what they were, there's, a little less ability for, true athletic performance of the season, but there is plenty of room, even still in some of the eliminations, as we'll see, and in the daily challenges for certain. First nominee in chronological order here is going to be Veronica, Queen V, plus we'll add in bonus Abram and Kendal in the Don't Yank My Chain episodes 8 dailies challenge, where Veronica goes 4 hours and 40 minutes holding her hands above her head. That daily challenge, everyone holds their hand above their head. If you drop it, it releases a bucket of one of a possible 3 or 4 different gross nacho ingredients, either cheese or sour cream or guacamole that had been sitting in a bucket for hours out in the hot Mexico sun. And you dump that on not your own head, but the person next to you's head, possibly messing them up. And it goes for like 3.5 hours. And it's 3 people left: Veronica, Abram, Kendal from Road Rules, and just Mike from Real World. Mike drops, and then we don't see the rest of it, but we were just shown that Veronica goes a full 4 hours and 40 minutes to win the lifesaver. I'm guessing that means either Abram or Kendal went like 1 second before her. But either way, Veronica, best athletic performance, with a shout out to Abram and Kendal right there along with her. Second one, speaking of Abram for Twist and Shoot Daily Challenge, episode 11. They have to stand on top of a platform about 25 feet or so up in the air. The platform spins in a circle. They're holding a paintball gun. And as they spin, there's a row of targets with everyone from the cast's face on it that they have to try to shoot. And they get 30 shots or until they fall off the spinning thing to shoot as much as they want, hit as many targets as they want. Every target they hit is worth 10 points. The first round through, everyone goes through once. Abram gets 11. The next closest is Cyrus at 6. Or at 9, and then the next closest is 6, and then 4. So Abram's 11 is far and away the best. And then it comes to a tiebreaker where Abram gets a penalty, a 5-make penalty, but is able to get 10 again versus 5 for the person he's going against in the tiebreaker to extend it yet again. So he gets 11 and then 10. The most anyone else ever got was 9 and then 6 and then 5. So by far and away, just he makes it look very easy, which honestly, it's one that I'm kind of like, he makes it look very easy because it seems like it actually could be easy if you just like get a good stance and try to have any sort of balance. But that is nominated. Then we've got Kendal. This is what we've been meaning to talk about here a couple different times. We brought up the brick by brick elimination. Now we'll explain the full thing of it. We touched a little before. Kendal, Mike, they have a relationship. Brick by brick gets really ugly for a lot of reasons. This is why. Kendal and brick by brick. 3.5 hours of her and Leah walking bricks from one pile across a decently wide balance. It's not like a balance beam, but it's about 1 foot wide, but it's enough that you could fall off. You have to be careful. Walk across this beam to 15 feet away and repile your bricks. One by one, you drop a brick, you lose, it's over. Otherwise, who can transfer the most in 3.5 hours, which is just a very odd, physically demanding endurance challenge to do in an elimination. One of the many, like, why does this have to be 3.5 hours long? Why couldn't this be 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 10 minutes? Like they could run, who knows? But the reason this performance is so impressive is not just because she moves like 450 bricks or something like that in these 3.5 hours, just constantly walking at a quick pace, pick up, put down, pass, back. But she goes in, and during the daily challenge preceding this, she is the only one on her team that does not know that the entire team plans on throwing the mission to make sure that Timmy, who is in the Inferno that night, gets the lifesaver and is able to throw in Katie. They don't tell Kendal. So Kendal doesn't know, and Kendal goes full blow on the Saturn Valet Ballet Daily Challenge. She wins it. She just narrowly beats Timmy, and then they all get pissed at her. They're like, what the hell, Kendal? Timmy was supposed to get that. We didn't tell you that, but you're just supposed to know that. You're not supposed to beat him. So now she has the lifesaver. On the other side, CT wins their lifesaver on the same way and throws in Leah. And they get there, and Kendall beforehand is talking to Mike, they have a relationship going in. They've been hanging out, they've been cuddling, they've been kissing. They're together for all intents and purposes. And it's real great, it's real cute, it seems real nice. They both are really liking each other. And he tells her beforehand, you cannot throw yourself in for Timmy. Kendall, always, forever, still today in the All-Stars world. So nice, so sweet, such a wonderful person, probably too nice to be on this show. And this was the defining moment where she even showed it way back in 2004. She wins this on accident. She has no business going into the elimination. And also, once they get there, it's Timmy versus Leah, and respectfully, there's some physical component to it. And it's like, dude, Timmy's going to wipe the floor. What do you have to save him for? But Mike tells her ahead of time, if you throw yourself in, we're done. I can't, you can't do that. You got to be selfish. Don't throw yourself in. It seems weird that it's like such a big deal to him. I get that it's like, you could go home and I don't want you to go home. So like, don't do that. But he's very aggressive about like, you cannot do this. Why would you do that? Do not do it or else we're over. I'll be mad at you. Kendall in the moment doesn't know what to do. Dave's like, you going to use it or is it Timmy? And out of nowhere, she's like, I'm going to step in. I'm going to do it. Everyone's stunned. She goes in and right away as it starts, she kind of makes a joke. She tries to a very fun, flirty joke to Mike. Literally 10 seconds in, she carries her first brick and she says something to the effect of like, Mike, you know what? You remind me of these bricks. And he responds with, I don't want to talk to you right now. And she's like, oh, come on. You remind me of these bricks. You want to know why? And then she throws a great cheesy, because I want to lay ya in there. It's very funny. Great parent joke there coming from Kendall. But Mike then just goes off. He gets so mad, calls her a liar. And this is where the whole letting them sit there for 3.5 hours drinking goes really off the rails, because Mike goes completely off the rails for no reason. He's just yelling. He's berating. He's talking all this shit. He's rooting for Leah. And he's just, it's really ugly. And it's really weird because it's strange. It's like, she threw herself in, so your girlfriend could maybe go home, but like she's openly winning. It's not like that big of a deal. And like, what's it ultimately matter to you if she goes in or not goes in? Like, she didn't backstab you in any way. She's still gonna, you guys want Leah to lose. She's still probably gonna beat Leah. So you're probably still gonna get what you wanted. What's the deal here? And it's a strange moment, but throughout the whole thing, those two end up, Kendall's so composed, so calm, so poised during all of it. She just tunes it out, ignores it, doesn't let it get to her. Then Leah and CT start going at it. Then Veronica and Katie start going at it. Then Abe just gets pissed at everyone being pissed at everyone. And he's yelling and he storms out. Everyone's drunk. Everyone's angry. Everyone's hot and sweaty. All this is going on. And Kendall just blocks all of it out. And so the both physical element of carrying all these bricks, 450 or whatever for 3.5 hours, also keeping her balance, moving at a good pace, kicking ass physically, but also just mentally being able to be like, what the fuck is going on around me? Why is my boyfriend getting all pissed at right now? What is this? He's berating me. He's being so rude, so mean, so just unconscionably stupid. And just block it all out, zone in, win this for 3.5 hours. It's incredible. Mental, physical performance, the whole thing goes through a lot in those 3.5 hours and comes out shining like the star she is. That's the third nominee. Fourth nominee for the best athletic performance then is joint nominee Coral and Veronica, Window Washing Daily Challenge, episode 15, final daily challenge of the season. Everyone trying their best. Coral and Veronica up for elimination. Both need the lifesavers to save themselves from that final elimination. And they both get it. They go together. Very good job on the producers by putting these two together for the run. They both go together. They have to rappel. They're on like a little window washing unit, and they have to drop down 3 stories at a time. Every third story, there is a number on a window that they have to memorize that number. They see 6 of them. When they get to the bottom, they use those 6 numbers to unlock a lock. And when the locks open, their time is done. Coral and Veronica both set the best time for their team. Both win the lifesavers, again, in a challenge that all the teams weren't trying to throw, which was a common theme. Everyone tried their best. Those two get the win when they need it, get out of the Inferno, celebrate accordingly, piss off team members accordingly in having to throw in a David and a Katie. But it's amazing. It's great. It's clutch. So Cora and Veronica, they get a nomination for that. Abram for his twisted shoot, Veronica plus Abram and Kendall for the don't yank my chain. But it is Kendall in the brick by brick elimination that wins the best athletic performance for just having to go through what she went through and shining so well and having the composure and the poise to perform in that atmosphere. It's hot. You got a bunch of drunk idiots yelling at each other and at you. You got a boyfriend, so you thought, a guy you were kind of treating like your boyfriend, yelling at you for literally no reason at all kinds of nasty, horrible stuff. And meanwhile, you've got to go head-to-head versus someone you're friendly with, and for 3.5 hours of focus and concentration and output during that. It's the best athletic performance of the season, hands down. Then we've got the easiest award of the season, the best quote. Normally, best quote of the season, we'd play you 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, as many quotes, great quotes as we thought deserved to be mentioned and to be played here on this podcast from the season, but it would be straight up disrespectful to even act like there's nominees outside of the one you've already heard. Coral, I don't wrestle. I fucking beat bitches up. She says it better than I do. Let's listen to her say it one more time.
She wants to fight you in the grass.
Give me a break, Coral.
She wants to wrestle you in the grass. Go downstairs.
She wants to hit me?
No, she wants to wrestle you.
I don't wrestle. I beat bitches up.
How much up?
That is obviously the award winner for the best quote of the season. It may be the best quote in the history of the challenge. It's certainly up there. I will do that bracket after I've done all the seasons. That'll be fun. This will be a top seed in that bracket. And honestly, if I was going to be disrespectful enough to even say another quote, it literally might be the runner-up quote of the season might be the thing Coral says immediately after it. As I mentioned before, her boobs are a constant topic of discussion in the house, and she even herself is using them in conversation just generally, and does so in reference to this possible fight. So let's just to hear Coral talking some shit, let's give one more little quote shout out to her, shall we?
And I'm gonna sit here.
Julie challenged me to a duel. I wear a 32 double D bra. One boob alone could kick her ass. Why is this happening to me?
So yeah, Coral, best quote of the season, hands down. Second time in her challenge career now that she will also be getting the Confessional Queen, the Dan Renzi Award for Confessional King or Queen of the season. Coral, two-time winner now of that esteemed award. Next up, one of the big categories here, iconic moment. Now, and previously we've said best moment. We're going to change that to iconic moment, and we're going to do kind of a two-tier thing here. We are going to name the most iconic moment of the season, and why I changed it to iconic versus best is what I was talking about earlier in this podcast, hours ago, as it may have been at this point. But yeah, some of these moments, they're not exactly heartwarming. They're not exactly great characteristics, great morals put on display. Some of them are scary. People trying to kill other people, potentially. People talking shit. People fighting, this, that, and the other. Nasty, ugly stuff going on, but entertaining, memorable, iconic, notorious, if you will, moments. So that's what we're really trying to award here. But we're also going to start it off with quickly some small moments. We're going to call this the smaller, fun moments that get honorable mention, but are certainly nowhere near big enough or memorable enough to be an iconic moment nominee. But just to run through them really quickly, just to give little shout outs to little things that happened throughout the season. We got Darrell, anytime he wears his teeth in his hair. Throughout this season, he literally comes off the boat at the beginning of this wearing these fake teeth that look all gnarly. He's got his afro and his glasses on, and he's talking in I don't know exactly what accent he's going for, but he's just talking a different way when his teeth are in and his afro's on. He's a different person. He's a funny person. He's always trying to be a funny guy, and he is a funny guy. It's very funny and entertaining throughout. You probably 10 times throughout the season see moments where the teeth are in, the afro's on, the glasses are on. Anytime he's wearing his outfit is great. Then another small moment, Mike versus Abram in the climbing wall, episode 4. Mike and Abram have, a nice little pass from the gauntlet now where they went, they wrestled in the house, Miz versus Mini Miz. Then they went to get faced off in the gauntlet, and Mike got the best of him. In this one, there's one daily competition that is a climbing wall over water. Two people at the same time climb either side of it, and Mike and Abram get matched up. They get to go head to head. Abram wins this round of Miz versus Mini Miz, and when he gets to the top, he can look over and see Mike down the other side. And last season, when Mike beat him, his whole team got around him and did a little "Who's a big winner? Who's a big winner?" around Mike. That was funny, but also interesting that that was what they went for. So Abram gets to the top of the wall and yells down, "Who's the big winner this time, Mike?" And it's very funny and very fun to see that little friendly rivalry continuing on between them. Then we have David leading a power aerobics class. He and Holly are getting a workout in. He decides to go full power aerobics class and lead Holly and anyone else who wants to pay attention in a little goofy aerobics class that is just absolutely great.
This is a lot better than going to work every day. I should without a doubt continue to enjoy every day I have.
Right.
I got this one at the gym fund to work out.
Come on, girls. Push-ups right now.
Want me to be a power aerobics instructor? You want me? I'll call myself
Is
Vlad.
it right?
Let's go, class. Stop. Come on. Come on. We're squatting. Come on, ladies. You're sick of having flabby ass. Ready?
I'll put it straight. I'm here for a good time.
I guess my motivation for this challenge was Acapulco, paid vacation, suntan. That's pretty much it. When it comes to competition, I'm just going to take it as it goes.
David, he's a great guy, but the only problem is he's been kind of lackadaisical lately.
You ready? Let's go! We're kicking!
To have David here, it's a comfort. My mother was really good friends with his mother. Like, we grew up together. He does little things that make him look weak to everybody else. The kid's legit. He's one of our best players.
Loved everything about David this season. David is one of my kind of underrated, only did a couple seasons, but I just really enjoyed his presence on all the seasons he didn't always give the biggest effort on this season. That was a thing with him in his team that he maybe didn't always. He literally took a nap during the Come Sail Away daily challenge where they had to sell, street vendor style, sell some stuff. He takes a nap in a chair during that. He might be the only person to ever take a full-blown nap during a daily challenge that he's actively supposed to be participating in. But love the power aerobics, love David on this season. Then we got Katie borrowing Timmy's Bengay cream by mistake. She thinks she's using Timmy's deodorant. Turns out it's maybe not deodorant.
But I decided I didn't feel like it right now. So, this is Timmy's deodorant, which I will use because he likes to use my razor to shave his face. That's how disgusting we are. Yeah. Is that deodorant? What is that? Oh my God, it burns. I don't think it is. I don't think it is. What is that? Read it. It's in Spanish.
Ultra heat.
Oh my. It's Bengay. Oh my God, my armpits are on fire. And why do they make it look like deodorant in Spanish? It burns. I hate Mexico. Really.
That moment is a hilarious moment, and of all the moments Katie has in this show, it's a very small one, not as memorable as some of the shouting matches and the elimination wins, but one I love regardless. And then the other little moment to shout out is Timmy at the reunion asking for donations. We played it for you earlier. We're not going to play it again, but that's very funny. So those are some of the smaller fun moments. But now let's talk the 4 true nominees for the iconic, the best, the most memorable moment of the season. I believe we've talked about all of these so far. So we've got Julie tries to kill Veronica, episode 1. We talked about that, at length, so we don't got to go through that again. We've got Julie wanting to wrestle. I have Veronica written down on accident. Obviously, wants to wrestle Coral, which leads to the quote, which turns into Julie pissing on Coral's bed, which... Again, can't believe they didn't show that in the actual episode. If they would have showed the peeing on the bed portion in the episode itself, this moment might win this award for the most iconic moment, but because it was 2 parts separated, it doesn't. But it is nominated Julie versus Coral. Third nominee then, Katie versus Veronica. We talked about that at length. We played a little snippet of it for you. Katie's won. She's in the final. Her hatred for Veronica boils over. Epic screening match ensues. Almost ends in blows. The thing we didn't say before that got a shout out about Veronica in this moment, the badass that she is, when confronted, Katie's been in her face, yelling. Veronica finally decides, you know what? I'm going to get in your face too. And the whole time, Veronica, I don't know if she was either about to get in the shower, had just came out of the shower, but she has shorts on, but then she just is like holding a towel over her front side. She doesn't have a shirt or a top on. And even though she's not even fully dressed when this is happening, she just starts charging Katie and like sticking her face in her chest, like up in Katie's face. And the whole time I'm like, you're not even dressed and you're going at, like, you're about to throw hands with this person. You're like getting all up in their chest. And it's just, it makes it even more impressive that she's like, you're catching me at the worst time. You did this on purpose. I just got out of the shower. I'm not even dressed yet. I'm only halfway there. You're in my face. I'm going to get in your face. Loved everything about it. That moment. Fourth and final nominee then is CT in the pink bikini. We referenced it earlier. I'll explain a little more now. The Come Sail Away Daily Challenge, selling goods on the street. They're trying anything they can to get people to buy the stuff they're trying to sell. And one of the ways they pull this off is by the Real World team has a pink bikini, a very small, little, thin pink bikini. And they convince a woman, a middle-aged woman, they're like, hey, we know you don't actually want this, but if you buy it, he will put it on and dance around for you. How about that? Will you pay for it? And then he will put it on and dance around for you. She pays. CT puts it on. He dances around. He twerks on her a little bit. The whole thing's great. All of the female cast members and all are, swoon a little bit. A lot of the male cast members either swoon or are intimidated. I swoon, I'm intimidated. Anyone watching, it's a very memorable moment from CT, to say the least. It's a very inventive way to get someone to buy some stuff and to try to bring home a win in that daily challenge, putting it all out on the line.
He will put this on. If you buy this bikini, he will put it on. Put it all in.
It's not gonna fit.
Turn around. Go. Go.
Desperate times call for desperate measures. And I had to step up for the team.
When I saw CT come out with that bikini on, I realized my life was complete.
I'll drink to that.
And while that is great from CT, when it comes to iconic moment, notorious, best, most memorable, whatever you want to say, Julie trying to kill Veronica it's the only way this can end. It's the only one that can win. It is one of the most top of mind, memorable moments in the history of the show. And while there are multiple of those this season, it's the one that has to win. So that's what it is. Julie and Veronica, episode 1, daily challenge, grope the rope, trying to pull the safety harness. That is the moment of the season. As for the best episode of the season, is a little tricky this time. Unlike seasons prior, this one, very, very good season. We're going to grade it here momentarily as a whole, but is just consistently good, consistently interesting. And there's some high highs, these huge, huge moments, but there wasn't in previous seasons. There's been almost every season we had so far has only had one episode rated A, and then some B rated and mixture of B, low Bs, high Cs, that sort of thing. This season is like almost all in the B range, and there's a handful of B pluses. None technically crack my rankings for a full-blown A ranked episode, but, which is very interesting when we get to the season award, but 3 of them are nominated for the best episode. Episode 1, 10, and 15. Episode 1, it's the premiere plus the Julie, Veronica trying to kill her on the harness, that whole situation. So in the premiere is just a good premiere. It's fun. The premiere is always fun. Everyone getting into the house, the whole cast there, the whole thing. Episode 10 has the bungee bound daily challenge plus CT beating Shane in the elimination, plus Leah going to the hospital. So there's all this human interest side. There's the best elimination of the season. There's one of the best daily challenges. There's some bickering going on, some seeds being planted for the big fights that are come later on. That's a great episode. Episode 15, Kendal wins the elimination, plus the Coral Veronica daily win to make the final. That one's really, really good. If I got to pick between the 3, I'm going to go with episode 10, Bungee Bound, as the best episode of the season. Now we've got the big award to hand out, the season MVP, the thing every challenge cast member wants, desires, dreams about, vies for, the most prestigious award in the challenge world, the season MVP. We've handed out 7 of them before. We're here to hand out the 8th one, the Inferno MVP. And we're going to do it the same way we did the last season. We're going to break this down to Where Were You, Gone Too Soon, our top 5 ballot leading up to our winners. So to break down a couple people that don't make the ballot but are worth a quick mention, an interesting side note. First is the Where Were Yous, which this season there's only one Where Were You. and that's CT. It's very surprising to say this, but CT is not very involved this whole season. He has the little flashes. He's got the elimination win. It's great. It's, won an award earlier in these awards that we're handing out. He has, one of the great moments. He made multiple award nominees, but those were kind of his only moments the whole season. He's not very present. He has one of the lowest confessional counts on the season. He's kind of quiet. He's in the background, and it's an efficient season from him. Of like when he does pop up, it's memorable. Him versus Leah, the bikini, the elimination. But when he's not there, he's not there. And you would think any season of CT's is if he's there the whole time, he makes to the final, he's probably a nominee for the MVP of the season. Not the case. He falls in the where were you category. I kind of expected more, not remembering this season that well, going back into the rewatch. And the seeds are there for the iconic, memorable, arguably greatest of all time career that is to come. But this season, I did find myself asking where was CT a little bit more often than I thought. Then there's the gone too soon. The easily would have made the ballot if they stuck around long enough. They were on an MVP caliber pace, but then they just left the game too early. That would be Jeremy and Julie. Jeremy comes in hot as a rookie, looking to prove himself. He's open to throwing himself into the elimination first time around just to get it out there, set a tone for his team. He does. He wins. It's great. He's kicking butt in the daily challenges. He has one of the most mature, nice friend moments in the history of this entire show when the first time Katie gets super upset with her team, he talks her down and has just this unbelievably mature, supportive conversation with her of how could things be different for you to, feel more respected, feel better? What kind of support do you need? Here's what we're looking for. You're looking for, let's get this all talked out. Let's be friends. Let's, be good people here. And it's wonderful and it's great. So he's a team leader. He's a great dude. He's kicking ass. He's putting himself into eliminations, but he does it a second time around and he ends up getting sent home. So, real strong performance, just was only there for 6 episodes. So gone way too soon to be on any MVP ballots. Same thing for Julie, makes it 12 episodes. She's a huge storyline throughout. She's got all the moments with Coral that we've discussed at length. She's, she's the one that has the most fun smashing guitars during that daily challenge. She's just having a great time, very present, lots of quotes, lots of confessionals, lots of just, strategy, feistiness, the whole thing. She's ever present, ever valuable, putting up a great performance, but doesn't quite make it long enough into the season to crack the top 5 of the ballot, which we will go through now. So 5 people make the final ballot for MVP in reverse order here. We'll start with number 5, and that is Kendal. Kendal, a one-and-done champion on the flagship show. This was her only season of the flagship. She comes in, she kicks butt, she gets a win, 11 dailies, 1 elimination, 1 final win, never to be seen on the flagship but go again. She was one of the one-and-done perfect champions of the challenge, comes back and puts that perfect record on the line in the All-Stars world of present day and, ruins a perfect record because it's a perfect record. It's not going to last forever, but a pretty near perfect season from her. She's got the relationship with Mike. She stands up for herself. And, after he's completely shitty in that elimination where she shows all the poise, wins the best athletic performance award for the season. She's Katie's best friend in the later half of the season. The only one that's nice to her, talks with her, chats with her, makes her feel like there's any reason to be there and any reason to have fun, someone to hang out with. She's just super sweet, wonderful person. She feels she's so nice, so over the top, unbelievably impossible, can't be cutthroat, can't be ruthless, can't be selfish. Such a nice, angelic person that she feels bad when her team doesn't tell her not to win a mission and then she wins it and she throws herself in that elimination anyways. All good stuff from Kendal. Worthy of making the MVP ballot. She comes in at 5th. Then the only male on the top 5 of the ballot, the Miz, comes in at 4th. As always, if Mike's in the season, Mike is a big part of the season. They were going to have it no other way. He was going to have it no other way, and we don't want it any other way because he's very, very entertaining. One of the earliest, biggest stars the challenge had, obviously going on to true superstardom in the world of professional wrestling, television, and just entertainment in general. His relationships, both Trishelle backstory stuff, Trishelle then trashing him to his friends at home, him and Kendal, the whole thing. He goes against Coral with a vote against her. He and Coral, kind of the team leaders of Real World the whole time. He has an elimination win, the whole thing. He runs the gauntlet. Has the most confessionals in the whole season, 65, the most per episode of anyone that lasted more than 8 episodes. Some of those times when you go out early, your confessionals per episode are really skewed high. But Mike is ever present. He's in 4th. Then at 3rd, we've got Veronica. Veronica, 3rd place win. third place finish. Her versus Katie, obviously a big deal, the big fight. She's ever present throughout the entire season. She's kind of running her team from the shadows a little bit. She's making a lot of the decisions. She's also absolutely kicking ass. She wins multiple lifesavers. She's coming in, putting up great scores in almost every one of the challenges, even the ones she doesn't win the top spot in. She gets the incredibly clutch lifesaver at the very end to save herself from elimination. She is officially won back-to-back seasons, is one of the two people to first ever do that, her third ever season win. And she's a part of iconic moments, whether she wanted to be a part of them or not. Julie pulling the harness, the whole thing. Veronica, third place. And then there's a big divide. Kendall, Miz, and Veronica are very clearly 3, 4, and 5 for me. There's a big divide after them before anyone else even had a chance at making the ballot. But there's a big divide between 3 and 2 and 1 here. 2 and 1. This is probably the hardest decision I've had to make, handing out this season MVP award. The ballots came in. They came in tied. We redid them. Came in tied again. We revoted multiple times on this. We split hairs. We thought about it each way we could. We flipped it one way to the other to see how we felt, what it looked like to put this person first, this in second, flip it back around. How do we feel now? Does either feel more right than the other? And in the end, we were splitting hairs, but we ended up putting Katie at second. Katie, MVP caliber performance. It's just one of those seasons where you had 2 MVPs in one season and only one person can win the award. And Katie, deserving of probably being called a challenge MVP for the performance she puts up this season, but doesn't quite get there. Second place finish. She is the 4-time episode MVP this season, though. Every episode, I name an MVP of the episode. She won 4 of them over the 17 of this season. She's the story of the second half of the season. There's kind of shades of Sarah Grayson on the Gauntlet, kind of a half-season version of it, 2 eliminations versus 5, but kind of that the team member Road Rules doesn't want, but fights her way to the end, ends up winning. 2 elimination wins. She's fighting with everyone all the time. She's causing drama. She's causing entertainment. She's causing laughs. She's putting up impressive performances. She is the one that nails basically almost all of the crossword at the end, the crossword puzzle that is the real defining moment of the final challenge that wins the final challenge for Road Rules. She's smoking cigarettes through the whole thing. It's all great. It's all wonderful. It's an incredible virtuoso performance from Katie. It's an MVP worthy performance, but it doesn't quite get her an MVP trophy because the winner of the Inferno season MVP has to be, after a lot of labor and discussion, it's got to be Coral. It's got to be Coral. Coral has been on an MVP ballot before. She's been around any season she's on. She's been right there, ready to win it. And this one, she gets the job done. She brings home that MVP award. She's got the unbelievably iconic quote. She's got the big moment. She's got her versus Julie. She's got her versus her team a little bit. She's got her being the leader of her team, manipulating, running her team. She's got her and Mike and their best friendship / backstabbing that Mike keeps doing to her every season. She's the Dan Renzi Award for the Confessional King or Queen of the season winner. She has the second most total confessionals. She's always a value add. She's always present. She's got the clutch elimination or clutch lifesaver win at the end of the season. She performs really well in the daily challenges this time around, a reversal of how she was kind of doing on the Gauntlet. Just the whole thing. If he comes down to it, when looking at Coral and Katie and say, what if we took this person out of this season? What happens? How much does the season lose? It would lose a lot to lose Katie. It would lose a whole heck of a lot. But it would lose the most to lose Coral. That would be the biggest hole. She is, if anyone is the sun that this universe of a show spins around for this season, it is Coral on the Inferno. She also just really kind of, she kind of feels like the defining player of the Inferno. When I think the Inferno, I'm like, Coral, that's it. Especially with the later seasons when it's badass good guys, I'm like, Coral's the definition of like the good badass, the badass you're rooting for, who is a good person, who you like a lot, but is an absolute badass. That's Coral. She's the winner. She is the season MVP. Welcome to the ranks of the legends, Coral. With that, we have come to the end. We have come to the final thing we must do. We've talked about everything we can talk about the Inferno, this wonderful, memorable season. All the highs, a couple of the lows. Still don't know what the hell they were doing with the eliminations, but, led to some interesting stuff. Now we have to grade the season. We have to put it in the pantheon for all time. We have to put it where it goes in the ranks of all challenge seasons forever. And this was another one similar to the MVP. I went back and forth on this. I tried out some different grades. I put a grade down, thought, does that feel right? I tried another one. Does that feel right? Which one feels a little bit better? Which one feels a little worse? So we'll start with breaking out our 4 categories, subgrades Female cast, male cast, sport grade, show grade. Female cast gets a B. Coming off maybe the greatest female cast ever the season before. This one drops down a touch. It is a B. It is still a good cast, but it's nowhere near a great one. Veronica and Coral are doing the real heavy lifting. They got, they're the real icons of the female side of this cast. You got Katie, Julie, and Trishelle, who are wild cards, great members of a cast, have memorable careers themselves, kind of in a second tier beyond Veronica and Coral. And then, Kendall, one and done. Holly is absolutely love Holly Shan. Sarah Rice before Sarah Rice. Holly Shan, dope, 2-time winner now. Christina, super good at challenges, is a great, one season for her. But they're kind of all more role player-esque. So female cast gets a B. There's a lot to like, but it's not quite as heavy on the star power as other seasons have been. It's certainly not of what the male cast brings, because the male cast side is the highest rated male cast ever. It is an A, full-blown A for the male cast, because out of 10 people, all 10 of them are real worthwhile. And just the list of heavy hitters, the top list, we got CT, Darrell, Abram, Miz, Cyrus, and Timmy. That is 6 Hall of Fame level challengers out of 10 of the male cast. That is unbelievable. Then you've got the next tier down. You've got Shane, very memorable, wild card, absolutely brings the entertainment. And then the 3 you got left, David, Jeremy, and Ace, all great role players, all entertaining, all have good moments in this season, except for maybe Ace, but his second episode exit is kind of entertaining in its own right. And I really like Ace. So they basically go 10 for 10. There's no duds here in any way. And when you got CT, Darrell, Abram, Miz, Cyrus, Timmy, that's 60% of your male cast. Your male cast is getting an A. So we got a B and an A for female and male cast respectively. The sport grade, that is where this season lacks a little bit. It's a C+. Mostly because the eliminations are just so fucking weird and all not very interesting to watch. Even if interesting thing happens on the sidelines of those eliminations, it's not that interesting to watch. And some of the daily challenges are really good, but a lot of them, there's some of them that are also kind of boring. And I'm also just not, I'm not as much of a fan of all of the team-based average time where it's like you're doing individual challenges, but you're making them in a way that they're team. And so I kind of want to grade them as individuals, but I got to count them as team wins or losses and stat book and things like that. And it just falls a little flat. So C+ on the sport grade, but then on the show grade, that's where things are great. That's a full-blown A-. That is the highest show grade that any of the seasons have got as a subgrade so far. Just because all the moments, there's so many big, unbelievable moments that we'll remember forever, that'll go down and challenge lore and history and infamy. And it's got to come in an A-, which means overall we got a B, we got an A, we got a C+, we got A-. It's not a perfect average of those that leads to the overall grade. But as I look back at what we had graded out all of the seasons that come before, and as I thought through, these 4 subgrades and where I thought this season should fit in of these first 8, where should it fall amongst all of these others? And what I ended up coming down to, and I reserve the right in all the other pods we've done and hope to in all the future ones, when I give out a season grade on the recap podcast, it's final. That's history right there. It's etched. But this one is not etched in stone. This one is written in pen. Excuse me. It's not written in pen. I take that back. It's not etched in stone. It's also not written in pen. It is nothing permanent. Nothing permanent here because it is written in pencil, because I reserve the right to bump this back down 1 spot. But right now, I believe this is an A-. I believe this is the first season we have that cracks into the ranks of it anywhere in the A category, an A-, which would put it as the best season to date, 8 seasons in. I reserve the right to move this back to a B+, but even if it's a B+, I think this is the best season we've had ever, which is why I originally was thinking B+, and then I bumped all the way to A-, just to differentiate it from the 2 B+ that have come before, the Gauntlet and Challenge 2000. In Battle of the Seasons too. Which ones did I rank where? I know those 2 were up there, B+. Yeah, those were the 2. And then Battle of the Seasons was a B, as was Real World vs. Road Rules Season 2. So that's your top 5 out of 8 coming in. But this one is the best one, I think, so far. As much as I had to take my personal bias of the Gauntlet is just such a favorite of mine, which is the subjectively my favorite, but objectively, I love all the seasons subjectively and objectively. I think this is the best one and by a slim margin. So I'm going with an A-. That's where it goes. It's in pencil, but eventually once I get more comfortable with it, either an A- or a B+, one of the two. Either way, it's the best so far. When we put 1 through 8 in order, this one's coming in at number 1. The Inferno, the greatest season of all time as of 2004. And we're done. The flame is out. The Inferno is in the past for now. It will obviously be back. That is everything for the coverage of this wonderful, memorable season, the best of all time as of this moment in challenge history, at least tentatively in pencil writing, as we just said. But a wonderful season, a wonderful podcast. Hopefully you've had a great time. I thank you so much for being here for, I know these last a very, very long time, but every one of these seasons, deserves all the attention, all the detail, all of the content that we can give to it. So thank you for being here. As always, hit that follow, subscribe button wherever you're listening. Throw a 5-star rating our way if you wouldn't mind. That helps us out a whole lot. And as I said at the top, if you've got ideas, if you've got things you want to hear me talk about when recapping all these seasons, if you got things you really, really like, things you really don't like, let me know. Hit me up at Challenge Historian on Instagram. DM me. I try to answer every single one of those I get. I would love, love, love some feedback at some point in the near future. I'd love to get a little feedback form with a link on the Instagram, maybe where you could click and answer a few simple questions for me, anything you would like to hear back. So hit me up there, slide in the DMs if you have an idea, a thought, an opinion that you would like to share. Just keep it constructive. I'm looking for constructive. We don't have to be, keep it a little less mean-spirited than some of the cast members may keep some of their feedback from time to time. So with that, we will be back later this week. All-Stars 3, big episode, it looks like, coming out on Wednesday. So if you're not watching All-Stars, you should be. Once you watch, our recaps will be up every Wednesday afternoon for the entirety of All-Stars season. We will then be back next week with the next season in the Rewatch series, Battle of the Sexes 2, Season 9, coming up next week. So have a good one. Until we speak again,